A film being turned into a musical. Groundbreaking. How many people have made that joke already? Probably a million. Alright, putting my Miranda Priestley aside, I was actually really excited for the Devil Wears Prada musical. It is often said a lot of the time that we are seeing way too many films being turned into musicals. But the thing is, the Devil Wears Prada feels like a natural move from screen to stage. This always felt to me prime to be turned into a musical. And maybe it's just because, in a rare case, I really like the film that we're turning into a musical here. A lot of time I go into these not knowing the film and then I look it up and watch it afterwards. But this is a rare case where actually I do know it. The Devil Wears Prada is a great film, and a lot of that is down to its cast, its story. So, how does it translate? What did I think of the Devil Wears Prada musical? Let's find out. But if you haven't seen my face before, hi, I'm Ellie. I talk about theatre. I am the most chaotic theatre person on the internet. I do reviews, I do discussions, I do versus brackets, tier lists, rankings, and if any of that sounds interesting to you, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me, it helps out the channel. But let's dive into The Devil Wears Prada on stage. The Devil Wears Prada musical has a really interesting production history, as this initially premiered in Chicago, trying to get to Broadway seemingly. It was halted because of the pandemic and eventually played in Chicago in 2022, receiving a very cold reception there. They have reworked the show, they have readjusted the show, and after a short tryout at Plymouth, they now have their London production, premiering at the Dominion Theatre in the heart of the West End, now being directed by Jerry Mitchell, who has a track record of bringing films to stage as musicals, with Legally Blonde, Kinky Boots, Pretty Woman, and many more. And on the whole, I think that The Devil Wears Prada musical is a very well-produced screen-to-stage adaptation. It looks pretty, and it's the film on stage. Obviously, there are some minute things changed, but pretty much this is a one-to-one adaptation, and I feel like that serves it well in places and less so in others. I think this is kind of what we expected out of the Devil Wears Prada musical, which is why I kind of ended up having a more fun time. I think this is the kind of musical that you go into and you shut your brain off a bit, which, honestly, despite a lot of people mocking this kind of musical, sometimes you need a musical like this. Sometimes you just want to have a bit of fun. Sometimes you don't want, like, the most heavy-hearted musical. Sometimes you just need to see a show about fashion with a really mean boss. And I think if that's what you're looking to get out of the Devil Wears Prada musical, you are going to get that. That is not to say that it doesn't have its flaws, though. I think the thing that this musical really struggles with is how it takes the structure of the film and puts it onto stage. I think this is unfortunately the musical's fatal flaw, because it takes the film and most of that runtime is covered in Act 1. If you are familiar with the film, Act 1 takes the start all the way to the gala evening. The moment where Miranda starts to see Andy above Emily. And Act 2 is pretty much just all of that span in Paris. As you can tell, there is a lot more content in Act 1 than there is in Act 2. And because of the way that they have to stretch and expand it, and in other places shorten it and make it more condensed, Act 2 feels like it's really stretched that material. Now, the story does generally work on stage. I think that a lot of the moments in this film are well adapted. All of the really iconic lines that you expect to be in here are here as well. And on the whole, it's a very comedic book with some really great one-liners, but the content of Act 1 makes that the much stronger act. Act 2 ends up dragging along, adds in a lot of slower ballads, a lot of moments that really slow it down and feels like it brings the musical a little bit more to a halt. Unlike Act 1, which feels like it has enough time to breathe and to introduce you to this story. I think a lot of these moments do work very well on stage. The growth and the change that you see in Andy is really interesting to watch when you're watching it in a theatrical context. And I think a lot of these moments from the film actually do have an innate musicality that really works. Like the introduction to Miranda really works well in this kind of chaotic, half-spoken song sequence, going from place to place in the office. Nigel taking Andy under his wing and giving her a makeover works well in a really flashy, big camp dance sequence. The gala evening and the spectacle of that, the fashion shows, these moments work very naturally with a musical angle. There are some moments that are given musicality that don't feel as justified, such as a very odd song that Andy and her boyfriend sing together. But something else I like about the musicality of this show is that Miranda herself doesn't really sing too much. She sings a lot of her numbers, and it gives her a very different edge to a lot of the other characters in this show. She's almost arrogant in that way. She almost doesn't need to sing. She can just speak through it and she'll be absolutely fine. I think this really works well for a character like Miranda because she is not your typical musical theatre character. It's a bit like my thoughts on Shrek the Musical. Well, I don't really like a lot of what that brings because Shrek himself doesn't really fit musical theatre until later when he's learned to open up more. So it doesn't really make sense for him to go with the format of musical theatre before that. I like how the musical takes this idea, and whether purposely or not, doesn't really give her proper full-out moments of singing until later when she opens up about her personal life. I think this also puts a lot more of the focus on Andy, who, as our protagonist, we really have to root for and get behind. I feel like a lot of her journey is established well throughout the musical. She is very much our eyes and ears at Runway. But I do feel like there's room for some more moments of reflection here. Just a song or two more to really get us into her journey. We're only really seeing it at certain moments throughout the show, and I did want a little bit more of her perspective on everything as a whole. Now, this adaptation keeps the musical in 2005. If I'm correct, I am pretty sure that the previous version in Chicago did actually update this to be in modern day, but I may be incorrect in that, and you may need to correct me. And while this does work, obviously it's based on the film worked, natural. There are some things that haven't aged well. There's some references to some certain figures that have not really aged amazingly well, and does make me wonder whether they should have gone in a different direction or adapted these in a different way to avoid mentioning certain figures that this musical touches on. On the whole, the adaptation is fine. It's okay. It's the film on stage, and that works for the most part, but it does lose a little bit of depth. It could go further into these characters. There are a lot of changes that could be made through this adaptation, or even leaning in a slightly different tonal way. There's some really fun moments of camp in this musical that only pop up every now and then, and I wish they had kind of gone into that direction to give it its own identity. It's a very funny book, not just because of the lines, the iconic lines and the great one-liners that Miranda has from the film, but also Kate Weatherhead and the extra additional things that she adds to it. I like its take on Miranda. I like how it keeps her as a very three-dimensional, not quite black and white figure. Someone that you really just can't get a full grasp on, and that intrigues you so much. It's fine. There are moments of brilliance here, and moments where they lean into their own style, but because it's so close to the film, you end up massively comparing the two, and the film comes out on top in almost every way. It's fun, it's just not revolutionary. And a film of this caliber deserves revolutionary. And I would say very similar things about this score. Now, the musical as a whole has a general, modern musical theatre feel. It's quite poppy, but doesn't skimp out on some bigger, flashier moments, really leaning into the musical theatre of it all. I think the biggest highlight of this musical, the piece of material that I will actually find myself, if they ever do a cast album, going back to, is Dress Your Way Up. And seeing as this song is in all of the marketing, I think they know that they do have a good little gem here. This is a bop. It's flashy, it's camp, it's dancey, it's alive. amazingly performed by Matt Henry. Funnily enough, Matt Henry also has one of the best moments in Act 2 as well, with the song Scene, this ballad going into Nigel's history, why he wants to work in fashion, why he worships Miranda, and attaching that to the context of growing up queer. This is an absolutely beautiful song, a real queer anthem, and a great moment. I'm really glad that they take the time to give this character this moment in this musical. And it's a great moment of adaptation from that original film to musical, to really flesh out this character and give him a bit more of a voice. Andy has a great Act 1 finale number called Miranda Girl. This moment of picking and choosing, deciding what path she's going to take, and paired amazingly with some fantastic vocals from Georgie Buckland. And there's also How to Succeed at Runway, a really, really fantastic number. I think it perfectly captures Emily's character and her vibe and her voice in this number, and oh my god. These are some belts, these are some riffs. But within that, I think there's some other songs that just kind of either are fine or didn't quite click for me. House of Miranda is a good number. I like how it takes you through the office. I like essentially the staging of it and the idea behind it. I just didn't find the melody of it sticking with me as much as some other numbers in this show. But one of the weakest and strangest numbers in the show is I Only Love You for Your Body. This is a baffling song. It comes out of absolutely nowhere, feels like it serves very little purpose to the musical, and is a strange decision to include, especially knowing how they end the boyfriend story in this musical. Because it makes him even more unlikable than he is in the film. And let me tell you, that's saying something. The score has some nice moments. As I mentioned, I really enjoy both of Nigel's songs. I enjoy the solos for Emily and Andy. While it's completely silly, I actually really enjoy the opening of Act 2. This number where Emily is just so salty and angry that she's not going to Paris. But I can safely say with Shayna Taub and Elton John attached, I was expecting a stronger score from this musical. But listen, if there was one thing that the Devil Wears Prada musical had to get right, it was the design. This is a story all about fashion. This is where the Devil Wears Prada shines on stage, especially within its costume. Now, I really like the fashion in this musical. Let's say, hypothetically, if Miranda was real and was watching this musical, would she like them as much as me? Probably not, but I enjoyed them, and there are some highlights in the show. And oh my god, Miranda and Andy in this musical have so many wonderful highlights, and I'm going to walk you through a bunch of them now, just explaining why these costumes are just so good. Let me load up the photos so I can actually speak about this in detail. First, let's speak about Miranda. Now, Greg Barnes did a lot of the design and a lot of the costuming for this show, but a lot of what Miranda wears was designed by Pamela Rowland. I'm not sure if there's anything that was done by Greg Barnes for Miranda, so I'm going to credit them both in general and then speak about all of the costumes in this show. First of all, can I just say, the first outfit that we see Miranda in, it's stunning. She comes out, she is lifted like in an elevator from the bottom of the stage, rising up. She doesn't even need to walk onto that stage. She is entered by lift, which is iconic, let me say that. With runway in hand and this gorgeous, gorgeous fur coat. These deep purples, the blues matching with that. It is so chic, so glamorous. The iconic sunglasses immediately giving her that look. She looks stunning. And this isn't even her best outfit in the show. This is one of my favorites. This is one of my favorites that she wears in The Office, but oh my god. There is also the gala outfit as well. This outfit is stunning. People will often ask me, if you could steal one costume from a musical, what would you steal? This is now my new answer, because this is glam. It immediately has that impact from the bright red of it, matching with the lighting on the stairs. It is a show-stopping fashion piece as she walks down, the jewels and the rhinestones absolutely shimmering off this outfit. You can see her from a mile away. If you are right at the back of the Dominion Theatre, you are not going to miss this outfit. And that's matched with the coat as well. Draped upon her shoulders, she is gorgeous. She is elegant. The earrings matching. She looks stunning in this. But as well as that, there are some fantastic outfits that Andy wears as well. When she gets more of a fashion sense, they throw everything at her. There's the outfit she comes out in during Dress Your Way Up. While I do think this look looks better in the film, Jodie Butland looks great in it. There's her white dress on the red carpet as she's posing. She knows exactly how good she looks, because she looks absolutely stunning. But I think the best Jodie Butland looks in the entire show is her gala night dress. The black dress, the tied up hair, oh my god. She looks stunning. Stunning. I don't even know if I have a photo of this one, but oh my god, you have to believe me. And even within that, I'm just going to speak about the gala itself because everyone at the gala looks so good. Nigel's outfit looks really nice, the long jacket. Really flowing with these giant sleeves covered in gold. There's the weird goat men, which they may look a bit weird with the giant goat horns, but like the mesh shirts and like the jewelry and everything looking gorgeous. Emily has some amazing looks as well. Honestly, this one, I really like her shoes. Give me those shoes. I would probably be in pain within 5 minutes, but I would look gorgeous and I would be fine. And of course, there's all the model dresses. There's certain sequences in this musical where they bring some of the looks through the audience, and being quite front in the stalls, quite close to an aisle, I got like a good look at a lot of these. The best ones is the gala night. That entire sequence is just fashion condensed onto a stage. With this gorgeous black and gold color scheme. The headdresses, gorgeous. The suit jackets, stunning. The patterns and everything is so heavy on detail. Oh my god. The fashion in this show is incredible. I need to move on, otherwise I will be here forever. I think the set is really nice too. It's mostly done on this one main backdrop of a New York City skyline, which then switches to Paris when we go to France in Act 2. And there's a lot of really nice moments within this. I think the offices are really well created, very, very reminiscent of the film. I like the angles that these set pieces come in to give you a different shape of the office, with only a couple pieces of set, allowing for a lot of flexibility in locations. I like the contrast between that space and how expansive it feels versus Andy's apartment and how claustrophobic that is. One of my favourite set pieces is the office that Nigel works in. There's so much detail in that set. You see all the boards and all the brainstorming. You see all the different issues of runway on the shelves. It's a very well lived in space. There's a really great moment that I'm not going to spoil, where they do something fun with the set as we first enter Paris. This certain set piece slowly lighting up bit by bit. A beautiful spectacle. For such a simple set, it is very surprising that it manages to fill such a big stage like Dominion. I think that was a lot of my worry going into this musical, that it wouldn't quite fill this space. But the fashion, the costume, the design does a great job at building this. And Jerry Mitchell does a great job providing some great choreo. There's some really fun sequences and really fun ideas. Obviously, Dress Your Way Up is flashy and big and bold. Exactly what you want in that kind of feel-good number. But even in a number Who's That Girl, there's some really fun moments of red carpet choreography, as Andy is like dragged across the place with these red carpets rolled out across the stage. Really fun, really interesting, and very well fitting to this show. Now, let's talk about this cast. This is a very well cast production. This is very well cast from top to bottom. I love how all of these characters bring their own perspective to these roles. As our protagonist, Jodie Butland does wonders as Andy. She really does sell the growth and the change in Andy throughout this musical. She's a very easy character to align yourself with. And I think a lot of that is down to Butland's portrayal and the realistic edge that she gives to it. Coming across really genuine and slowly showing how her time at Runway almost corrupts her in certain ways and changes her. Vanessa Williams is a perfect choice for Miranda. She isn't a one-to-one copy of Meryl Streep, because no one could do this role like Meryl Streep. But Williams provides her own version of it. Just as cold, just as demanding as Meryl Streep's performance before her. You want to know more about this character the more and more you see her. I think that's the beauty of a character like Miranda. As I mentioned before, there's such an intrigue to why she acts like this. She is awful. She is awful. But you can't help but be enamored by that. You can't help but being intrigued. There's such a status that she holds herself with that leads into that. And Vanessa Williams portrays that perfectly. Matt Henry gives some fantastic moments as Nigel, really fleshing out this character, really playing with this material. Vocally, one of the strongest performances in this show. He is massively helped by the fact that he gets the best material in the show as well. A really wonderful portrayal. Amy Di Bartolomeo plays Emily. And honestly, the first thing I have to say, vocals? Vocals. Her ending riffs in How to Succeed at Runway, get yourself ready because you are not. I adore how she plays this role. There's so much anger and frustration and pettiness within there, especially within the opening of Act 2. That whole opening sequence, you can tell the hatred that she feels in that moment. It is glorious. And there's some great supporting performances from James Darch, who plays Christian. I love how that relationship with Andy changes and unfolds throughout this show, the two working together very well. And Reese Whitfield as Nate, the boyfriend that everyone hates. The Devil Wears Prada is the musical I think a lot of us expected it to be. It's a well-produced and extremely good-looking musical that has enough fun to keep you entertained for the full experience. And I think if you like the film, you're going to like what this musical presents. But it is hard to shake the feeling that with a little bit more work, with a little bit more shaping, and some restructuring, especially within Act 2, that there could have been a really, really strong adaptation of this film to be presented on stage. And really make the material shine just as much as the production value does. That's all. Well, go on, subscribe or something.